Today, I want to talk about creativity and how I finally read The Artist's Way and it completely changed my life in 2024. And as you can tell, I started doing YouTube after 15 years of wanting to become a YouTuber. Growing up and into my early adulthood, my creativity always took a back burner to all the things that I had to do. And that's one of the biggest themes in The Artist's Way. She talks about how you essentially become a blocked artist because you repress your artist and you detach yourself from your creativity. And that's exactly what I did. I had a neglected dream of becoming a YouTuber and I just let it kind of fall on the wayside for all of my other responsibilities and things that I had to do, things that I needed to do, not realizing that if I fostered my creative self, I would have been much more productive and much happier overall. But recently, things have been changing. I've been finding that creative voice inside of me getting louder and louder and harder to ignore. Recently, it has been on my mind like crazy. Latoya, why have you not started this YouTube channel yet? You know you want to, let's do it. And I even got challenged at the beginning of January to create 6 videos and I couldn't do the challenge. And after that disappointment, I realized to myself like, hey, if you really care about this, if you really love yourself the way that you claim you do, you would finally take this seriously and get to work. And that, my friends, is where this came in. I started The Artist's Way. This book has been calling to me for a while now. I've seen it online several different times in several different places, and I always thought, that sounds like something I need. A spiritual path to higher creativity. So you mean you want to put my spirituality woo-woo side together with my creative side into a book? I think that's what I need to do. So back in April, I started The Artist's Way, specifically on April 12th, and I continued on for 12 full weeks until July 14th when I finished the 12-week program. And the goal that I set for myself at the beginning was that every single week I am going to upload a YouTube video to youtube.com no matter what. And I can proudly say that for the 12-week program, I uploaded every single week, and I've continued to upload every single week ever since. So today I want to talk about the things that I learned in this book that really revolutionized the way that I relate to my creativity and how it transformed me into a YouTuber. If you look at my page now, I have several, like 20 plus videos on my channel, and I am a bona fide YouTuber simply because I committed to this program. I worked through it over the 12 weeks and it has completely changed my life. So first, I'm gonna walk through the 7 different major lessons that I got from the book, and then I'm gonna tell you how it actually is reflected in my life and how things have actually changed. The first thing, and this is probably an underlying thing, it's a trend throughout the entire book, is that you have to maintain a connection with yourself. And this is something that I've already been very, very hip to. I've been working in therapy, I've been doing personal development work, so this is very, very near and dear to my heart, but it's the idea that you have a relationship, a connection, a caring bond with yourself. And the way that she talks about it is really in the form of this inner artist. And I like to equate that to like your inner child, which really is the same thing. Your inner child is the most creative, abundant part of you. And she talks about that from the beginning. So I immediately was sold. I was like, okay, she's talking my language. She's talking about the things that I already care about. Let's see how this plays into everything else. For me, I know that all of the growth that I've had over the past couple of years has all come from me connecting with myself and prioritizing myself. And it's the same idea when it comes to creative self. Your creative self needs to be nurtured, it needs to be cared for, it needs to be heard, it needs to be spoken to. It basically needs to be cared for just like any other relationship in your life. And that is a core theme that carries throughout the book because essentially what you're doing is finding yourself, figuring yourself out, getting to know your creative self more, and then letting your creative self actually express and no longer be repressed and hidden in the back hallways of your mind like mine was for years. In week 7, Recovering a Sense of Connection, she talks about this a little briefly and specifically about how this part of you, this creative part of you, needs to be a collaborator in your life. She says, the minute you are willing to accept the help of this collaborator, you will see useful bits of help everywhere in your life. And for me, this could not be more true. As soon as I started to just recognize myself as a creative being, having creative insights, suddenly I was so inspired. I'm like, oh my God, that could be a video. Oh my gosh, that could be a painting. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And I just found myself so inspired and so excited. And I was like, wow, where am I getting all these ideas from? And yeah, it's from your creative self, the part of you that's been hidden all this time. Once you identify her, once you let her out, she is on fire, okay? The great thing about this book is that it's very practical. She actually has some exercises that walk you through how to excavate your creative self. She calls it like archaeology in one of the weeks. And it's essentially just an opportunity for you to ask yourself questions about things that you probably have forgotten. So one of the prompts was like, as a kid, I needed more blank. And it forces you to go back and think about what are the things that you missed in your childhood that probably could have helped your creative self be more expressive, but that you didn't receive. And then of course, with that information, you have to use it and give it to yourself now, asking yourself questions, getting really, really, really good questions. She gives you a ton in this book. And you start to have to face yourself. You start to remember things. You start to put things together like, oh, maybe that's where that came from. Oh, it makes sense. And it's really funny because in the beginning of the book, probably like week 1, she talks about how there are people who are meant to be writers and to be expressive and to be creative, but parents see that trait and they say, you should be a lawyer. And go figure, I became a lawyer. So it immediately was like, okay, a little too real, a little too close, back it up. But she had me. The second thing that this book did was it really gave me an anchor and it gave me language for the things that I had always felt. There were so many times when I read this book where I felt like I was having an aha moment because it just made so much sense. It spoke to me so deeply and it felt like just affirming the beliefs that I had already had but didn't really have anything to kind of put it up against. She said it and it made me feel like, oh my goodness, I'm not crazy. I'm not nuts. This makes sense. In week 2, Recovering a Sense of Identity, she gives you some rules for the road that were very, very helpful, but one of them stood out to me so much because it was exactly how I felt. She says, remember that it is far harder and more painful to be a blocked artist than it is to do the work. And if that doesn't speak to me, I don't know what does. I felt so pained and strained and just upset and just everything, okay? When it came to the fact that I was not doing the things that I wanted to do. The fact that I wasn't a YouTuber ate at me for years and it was so painful and it was so hard. But in my mind, I always thought, being a YouTuber would be much harder. Figuring out how to film videos and edit and all that stuff would be much harder. Now that I'm here, let me tell you, 100% for sure. It is so much harder to be a blocked artist not doing the things you want to do than it is to simply do it. That's it. Another thing she said that just really resonated with me, and is something that I've already experienced, is that you should not let your fear or your doubt turn into self-sabotage. And this is something that as an executive coach, I preach. I tell everyone this. You will have doubt, you will have fear, but it is your responsibility to not let that fear and doubt turn into self-sabotage, turn into procrastination, perfectionism, just bullying, criticizing. Stop it right there, okay? So when she said that, I was like, okay, yeah, she's preaching my language. She's speaking my language. Like, she gets me. And it really, really made it easier to sink down into the book and anchor into what she was saying because I already felt like she understood who I was. Another point in the book later, she talks about how creative people are dramatic. Drag me, because she's not wrong. And I was like, oh, so she does know me. She knows me very, very well. And that was a great experience. It just felt like every single week that I sat down to read, I was prepared for something to blow my mind, and it definitely did. This one is probably the most important one, and of course the most impactful, but this book gave me physical proof of my effort. I started creating, I started making things, I started posting videos on YouTube, I started making TikToks, I started painting, I started coloring, I started biking. I'm like, who am I? Who is she? Like, what is going on? But I actually got to see physical evidence, real life external things that showed me that I actually am a creative person. And I had always denied myself that identity, but this book, because she forces you to do exercises and because I had that extra goal attached to reading, I just got the opportunity to see myself be creative. And there is nothing else in this world that can provide that type of joy and fulfillment other than just doing the work. In the book, she describes this in week 8 as filling the form. And filling the form essentially just means taking the next step, doing the things that are required to get you to where you want to be. Very simple, very basic. But she gives you this general rule of thumb that there's always a next step that you can take. There's always some small incremental step that you can take towards building your creativity, making your art, writing your book, filming your videos, whatever it is. And if you operate from that baseline, you will always be filling your form. You will always be doing the work. And that really does keep you going because doing the work is not easy. I know I said it's easier than not doing the work, but that doesn't mean that it's just easy, okay? And that leads me directly into my next thing, which is that this book made me do things that made me uncomfortable. I had to face my fears. In order to do the work, I had to be awkward. I had to feel uncomfortable, but that is a requirement of the creative journey. For example, in week 4, she talks about this thing called reading deprivation week. Let me tell you, this was very, very hard. You cannot read, you cannot watch anything, you cannot consume any content at all. You literally just have to create for the entire week. Did I fail at this? Yes, absolutely. But did I try? That's all that matters. I definitely tried. And that was hard, okay? There's no way that you operate in this society and you don't consume anything. So I really did have to just kind of pick and choose what I chose not to see. Like I had to read my emails, I had to do my work, but I didn't watch YouTube that week. I tried not to watch TV. I'm pretty sure I did read, but that's okay. But it was very uncomfortable to do that, right? Because in that free time, I had to fill my time with stuff. I was painting, I was drawing, I was playing video games. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna run out of things to do. And at some point during that week, I'm pretty sure I just stared outside and just looked at the sky and did nothing else. I fought that very, very hard. But it was cool at the end because I could see why she wanted us to do that, to create this space and this openness for your creativity to actually flourish. Going back to the rules of the road, one of the rules that really helped me navigate through this discomfort and just push through was number 9. It says, remember that it is my job to do the work, not my job to judge the work. I'm here to do, not judge. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to say that to myself because I feel so cringy. I feel so awkward, so uncomfortable, and I just have to remind myself, I'm getting it done. I'm handling the quantity, the quality, not my business, because I don't care. I'm not here to judge it. I'm just here to do it. And that just causes you to actually do the damn thing. Because if you're anything like me, you're a perfectionist and you will go over things 115 times and ultimately decide to just scrap the entire thing entirely because it just doesn't meet your standard. With this book and with this challenge, I didn't have that opportunity. When I had to post a video every single week, even when a video was mediocre, even when I didn't have enough footage, even when I just felt like, really, am I gonna upload this? Yeah, I had to do it. I had to do the work, not judge it. And over time, I definitely feel like I got better. Not the best, I still got some things to do, but I got better and it got easier because I realized, hey, I'm doing this for me anyway. This is supposed to be fun. This is a passion project. At least it's done and I can look back on it and say, wow, I'm proud of myself for doing that. I did that. Okay. She also talks about 2 things, which are creative U-turns and creative droughts, which is essentially a drought where you feel like you're not creative, you're not making anything, you just feel stuck. And then creative U-turns are like when you're about to have a big breakthrough or you've edited your video all the way to the end and then suddenly you're like, meh, I don't like this anymore. Really, it's self-sabotage. She walks you through the process of how to deal with those things, how to sit with them. She really tells you to just recognize that they're normal. Everybody goes through this, and the less you fight those things, the less you lean into that discomfort, the easier it goes by and the quicker it goes by. And if you just recognize it as something that's par for the course, completely normal, don't freak out at a drought, don't freak out at a creative U-turn, you will be able to just navigate it so much more smoothly and it becomes way less uncomfortable. I mentioned this briefly earlier, but when it comes to creativity, you really do need space and openness in your life. And that is something that I got from this book immediately. This stuff takes time, it takes effort, it takes mental capacity. And because I also had the goal of uploading every week, I had to optimize my entire life around making YouTube videos. I had to get a sleep schedule, an eating schedule, a workout schedule. Like, I had to start taking care of myself so much that I would have the creative space and capacity to actually do this stuff. And I think that when we're overwhelmed, we're rushing, we're always running and ripping, and we have so many things on our to-do list, it doesn't leave any space for creative exploration. You're just stacked. You're overwhelmed. Your to-do list is as long as a freaking CVS receipt, and you never have the opportunity to just do nothing for a second, right? And just let your mind wander. And that's when you have creative inspiration. You know, when people talk about they're in the shower and an idea just hits them, imagine that you don't have to be in the shower to have that happen. If you create a life where you're optimizing for your creativity and you're caring for yourself, you will find that there's much more space and opportunity. And in that space and opportunity comes your creativity. And this book definitely walked me through how to create that space, because that is what creativity requires. Simply put, it requires a spaciousness and openness and a land to just kind of be free. It's very woo-woo, it's very airy-fairy, but it's true. The next thing this book gave me was really just the practical lessons on how to uncover, care for, encourage, and just be with my creative self. This entire book is really just a workbook on how to nurture yourself and how to care for yourself so that you can actually be creative. We're all creative people. We're inherently creative beings, but through life, obviously that kind of gets repressed. It gets put on the back burner. It gets put next to things that are more important, and it always kind of falls by the wayside. But this book really is just a bunch of lessons and practical tools on how to care for yourself, how to uncover your creative self, how to encourage your creative self so that you can actually be creative. One of the things that I really, really loved in this book was in week 9, she talks about how people really tend to call things lazy. Like, oh, I didn't upload on YouTube. I didn't do that painting. I didn't write that paragraph. I'm lazy. And in reality, it's not laziness at all. It's fear. It's being nervous about how your art is going to be received. It's being scared that you're not good enough. It's all of the thoughts and doubts that swirl through your mind that prevent you from actually doing the work. And she goes in to talk about how when you care for yourself and you encourage your creative self, that fear goes away. And suddenly you're no longer lazy. You never were lazy, but you're able to actually do the work. She talks about how over time you're doing a routine, you're sticking to these habits, and suddenly it becomes about the discipline and not the creative exploration. The discipline that you gain from sticking to a plan and making art over and over and over gives you something in your soul. And I can absolutely speak to this as somebody who was always just, when it came to creativity, I would be hot and cold, on and off, and I just could never stick to it. Now that I've developed the discipline necessary to actually be creative, I find myself being inspired all the time and able to do work. And it's so funny because in the book, she talks about how people think that creative people just lounge around and don't do anything, and they're just like, ah. I talked about that spaciousness, but in order to have that spaciousness, you actually have to be very disciplined and very intentional about creating that time. Otherwise, you're never going to have it, right? And so talking about like the discipline and the intention and just how much it takes to actually do the work to get things done, it was so funny to hear her talk about it because I definitely related. But she also gives like practical tools, exercises, advice, just really, really good information on how to use it and kind of get over that. And last thing that I picked up from this book was just a community of creative friends. When I tell you, I have so much respect for artists now that I realize how much effort goes into creating art, whether that's a YouTube video, an Instagram post, a book, an article, whatever it is, I am astonished. And I have so much respect for people who are creative because oh my goodness, how do you have all of that up there and you get it out here and make it look so cool? I think it is the coolest thing ever to be an artist, because how are you expressing yourself like that? How did you even come up with that? I just think it's so cool. And even outside of that, it has allowed me to build community, because now I have a book club and we get together. Obviously, we read a book, and it's just another opportunity to like express yourself creatively, talk about what you're reading, and be in community with other people who care about the things that you do. And I started that because I had a creative itch that needed to be scratched, and a book club did it. And it's so great. So it really did give me an opportunity to build community with people around me and with other artists online too, because again, I just have so much more respect for people who make things. Like, that is insane. It is insane. So yeah, those are all of the lessons that I took from this book. Now I want to pivot and talk about how it actually has changed my life, what things in my life are different now that I've read this book. And if it isn't obvious already, the first one is that I'm a YouTuber. I have uploaded like 22 videos in a row on YouTube. And if that doesn't sell you on the book, I don't know what is, because I waited 15 years to be able to do this, and now I do it consistently with ease. I don't even think about it anymore. It's not that hard. I'm just like, oh, new video, gotta film, gotta record, gotta edit, and boom, I do it. So if there's anything else that comes from me talking about this book, it's that it helped me accomplish my goal of becoming a YouTuber. And now I'm in front of the camera every day. I'm editing videos. I'm learning how to do cool tricks and things with the camera. Like, it has expanded my world entirely. It also helped me get back into journaling. So one of the tools that she requires you do is called morning pages, where you pick up a journal and you just write for 3 pages first thing in the morning. I have always been somebody who likes to journal, but I've been on and off with it, like kind of doing it, kind of not. But with the book, you have to journal every single day. And when I tell you, it has gotten me back on my journal kick. I'm like, yes, I don't know how I was living without my journal. It is so good, but really it just gives you an opportunity to see and feel all of your thoughts, get everything out of your mind, to declutter your mind, and then be able to move on with your day in a more clear and spacious way. Remember, creativity requires it. So it definitely has helped me become better at journaling and being more consistent at journaling too. And going down that same kind of thought pattern, it has also helped me become way better at my wellness routine. Remember how I said I had to optimize for being able to make these videos? That really seeped into everything in my life. So now I get good sleep. I go to bed at 9:30 p.m. because I want my brain to be at its best, okay? I bought a bike and I go cycling every single morning. I get outside into nature. I move my body. I'm making sure that I'm eating really, 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 really nutrient-dense meals. I'm just caring for myself more, because now I'm like, my creative inner artist, she needs to be well taken care of. Whatever she needs, she can have it. I've been buying myself things. I've been spoiling myself a little bit. And all of that has come from just the fact that, yeah, it's important to prioritize my inner creative self. This is something that I heard Paige Pritchard talking about on the Overcoming Overspending podcast, but she talks about the consumption versus the creation balance that we all have in our life. And I've definitely recalibrated my balance entirely. I used to be the type of person that consumed so much content, from YouTube to Instagram to TikTok, wherever it was, I would just be consuming, and I wasn't really creating anything. Now I create way more than I consume, and I can tell you that it has changed the fabric of my brain. I feel like I'm much more capable of being creative because I'm not inundated with everybody else's opinions and thoughts and just talking. Like, I just try to cut that out as much as possible. I definitely still do a little scroll here and there, but I'm nowhere near as much on my phone as I used to be, and that has helped me become much more creative. I don't know if you follow me on TikTok, but you should. I post a TikTok almost every single day now. Every single day I'm creating content and I'm putting myself out there. And that is something that I could have never dreamed of. I struggled with that for the longest. And as a business owner, it was always something that was haunting me, like LaToya. you need to post, you need to post. And I just couldn't do it. But now that I read the book and I've gone through all the exercises and I've just put in the discipline and put in the hard work necessary, it comes so much more easy to me now. So my creation versus consumption scale has just been balanced a little bit better, and I feel so much better about it. So overall, this book was really, really great. I didn't go into too much detail, so you still have a lot to see and learn if you want to pick this up. I think it is so amazing, and I'm actually coaching somebody who is reading this book right now, and we meet every 2 weeks and talk about the things that she worked through in the book, and then we actually coach based on what she did. And it has been so cool as a coach to see somebody else's experience going through the book. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely send me a message. I would love to be your coach as you work through The Artist's Way. But either way, I just recommend it so much. It's such a good book. I'm already planning on rereading this book. This will always be my forever first copy, but let me just show, I haven't even showed you all. I haven't even showed you, okay? Let me just show you how much I've written in this book. Like literally, it doesn't matter what page you go to, I have written in this book. Are you kidding me? It is so, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. So yeah, would highly, highly recommend. I love it. I'm going to be reading it again. I'm coaching somebody who's working through the book right now. I think it would be great to do like a group coaching program as people work through this. That would be something that would be interesting. And she actually encourages that in the back of the book. She talks about how to coach people through it. So it's really cool. But yeah, that's The Artist's Way. That was my experience. I loved it. I'm so grateful that I can now call myself a YouTuber now that I've worked through this book. It is a book that I would highly recommend to anyone who's ever had a creative passion, a creative inkling, if you're stuck in a creative rut right now, or if you just want to explore your creativity at large. I definitely and highly would recommend this book. So thank you all so much for watching. I will catch you in my next video, and I hope you're having a great day. Bye.